Does China snub Trump by refusing to change even a single word on Iran? She makes Trump shut up on Taiwan while staying firm on China's Iran and Hormuz stance. Did Trump spend 2 days seeking Xi's help on Iran, only for Beijing to refuse to budge? Donald Trump arrived in Beijing hoping China could help the United States address tensions with Iran and the growing crisis around passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Expectations were high that Xi Jinping might use Beijing's leverage over Tehran to push Iran toward accepting U.S. terms or at least to reduce actions that threaten commercial shipping through Hormuz. However, post-meeting readouts from both Washington and Beijing suggested the talks did not produce a meaningful shift in China's position on Iran or a clear new commitment to U.S. demands. China remains one of Iran's closest diplomatic partners and its largest oil customer, giving Beijing economic and strategic reasons to avoid measures that could be seen as directly confronting Tehran. After his first round of talks with Xi, Trump publicly claimed the Chinese leader offered to help resolve the conflict, framing the visit as potentially productive on the Iran question. Later, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told NBC that, according to his account, the United States had not formally asked China to provide specific assistance, complicating the administration's messaging. The White House said both sides agreed the Strait of Hormuz must remain open and that Iran should not acquire nuclear weapons, presenting those points as common ground from the meetings. However, China's statement about keeping Hormuz open could also be read as including opposition to external measures such as a U.S. blockade, leaving room for differing interpretations. She reportedly opposed any militarization of the strait or the imposition of tolls on shipping, emphasizing Beijing's preference for freedom of navigation without added security measures. Despite the talks, Beijing appeared to stick to its existing position on the conflict, reiterating long-standing principles without signaling a change in policy toward Iran. China had earlier called for normal passage through the Strait of Hormuz, language that emphasizes commercial transit but does not equate to taking sides in regional coercion. Notably, China's foreign ministry readout made no mention of support for shipping tolls or enforcement measures that would back a U.S. blockade, indicating caution in its public posture. Trump himself acknowledged limits to Xi's influence over Iran, noting in comments that the Chinese leader was unlikely to apply forceful pressure on Tehran. "He's not coming in with guns," Trump said when asked whether she could compel Iran to change course, underlining an understanding of Beijing's constraints. Hours later, China's foreign ministry reiterated that Beijing's position is very clear, signaling continuity and an unwillingness to adopt dramatic new steps for Washington. That statement strongly suggested China had no plans to alter its stance at Washington's behest, reinforcing perceptions of diplomatic distance on the Iran issue. The developments fueled speculation that China had effectively snubbed U.S. expectations by offering vague support for open navigation, but stopping short of concrete action against Iran. All this unfolded even before Trump's high-stakes Beijing visit had officially concluded, leaving key questions about the trip's impact on Iran and Hormuz unresolved.
This has been an incredible visit. I think a lot of good has come of it. We've made some fantastic trade deals, great for both countries. He's a man I respect greatly, become really a friend. We've known each other now 11 years, almost 12 years, that's a long time. And we've settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to settle. And the relationship is a very strong one. We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open. We're closing it now. They closed it, and we closed it on top of them. But we want the straits open, and we want them to get it ended because it's a crazy thing. They're a little bit crazy, and it's no good. Can't have it. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
An Iranian lawmaker has reportedly proposed a new kind of annual fee linked to infrastructure running through the Strait of Hormuz, specifically targeting undersea data links rather than shipping. He said that countries using fiber optic cables laid across the strait should pay Iran yearly fees, arguing that these lines cross through an area under Iranian control. According to his comments, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of financial transactions flow through these cables every day, making them a lucrative potential revenue source. The lawmaker described the Strait of Hormuz as a treasure, comparing it to other natural resources, mines, and reserves that he said are at Iran's disposal to manage and monetize. His remarks came just days after reports suggested that Iran is seeking greater control over undersea cables in the Hormuz area, raising concerns about both economic leverage and data security. Iran is said to be mulling full control over all 7 undersea internet cables in the Hormuz corridor, according to reports citing IRGC-linked media discussions. Tehran appears to be exploring a revenue model built around permits and toll payments for cable operators using the strategic waterway. Indian media reported the claim on May 10, citing a post attributed to Iran's fast news agency and related IRGC-linked messaging. Fast news agency said, and I quote, "In the proposed governance model for the Strait of Hormuz, the passage of submarine cables must be conducted with a permit and payment of tolls, and foreign companies must also operate under Iranian laws. Furthermore, the management, repair, and maintenance of these cables can be exclusively entrusted to Iranian companies, so that the Strait of Hormuz becomes one of Iran's digital power levers." Unquote. Iran now appears to be weighing the same choke point strategy it has long been accused of applying to commercial shipping in and around Hormuz. The revelation surfaced only days after reports warned that any move against undersea cables in Hormuz could trigger major internet, financial, and communications disruption across the region and beyond. The Eurasian Times reported on May 1 that it had examined multiple studies and assessments to highlight what it described as a growing threat to the global internet from tensions centered around Iran and the Gulf. According to that analysis, Iranian forces could potentially sever undersea cables and create yet another strategic choke point in the Strait of Hormuz, this time in the digital domain rather than only in energy shipping. Reports suggest that any serious disruption tied to Iran's cable threat could interfere with financial networks handling as much as $10 trillion in daily flows, turning a regional confrontation into a global economic shock. The economic value and strategic utility of subsea cables are exactly why many analysts increasingly see them not just as civilian infrastructure, but as highly attractive military targets in a crisis. As Eurasian Times put it, these cables function like the arteries that connect nation-states and their populations, carrying the digital lifeblood of modern commerce, communication, and coordination. There are more than 500 commercial undersea telecommunications cables supporting the modern global internet, which means damage to even a small number of key routes can have effects far beyond one region. Any interference with the normal flow of internet traffic can disrupt daily life and potentially trigger a wider livelihoods crisis, especially in economies deeply dependent on uninterrupted digital services.